Okay, class, let's delve into the concrete jungle's story, etched not just in steel and glass, but in dreams and grit. We'll start with the Beaux-Arts era, that grand statement against the sky.
Elias, a man whose tweed jacket struggled to contain his enthusiasm, gestured towards a projected image of Grand Central Terminal. He spoke with the informed passion of someone who truly loved the subject. He detailed the meticulous planning, the carefully chosen materials, the way the light danced across the celestial ceiling. He moved on to the Art Deco skyscrapers, testaments to ambition and innovation, buildings that seemed to pierce the very clouds. He was about to launch into a discussion about the post-war modernist architecture, with its clean lines and utopian ideals, when his voice hitched. Another image flickered on the screen, a black and white photograph of the Chrysler building, gleaming like a silver needle. But it wasn't just the building that caught him, it was the memory it triggered. He found himself transported back decades, to a time when the Chrysler building wasn't just a historical landmark, but a beacon in his own young life. He cleared his throat, his carefully constructed lecture momentarily forgotten.
You know,
He said, almost whispering.
It's easy to talk about these buildings as structures, as triumphs of engineering. But they're so much more than that. They're the backdrop to our lives. And sometimes,
His gaze drifted towards the window, towards the blurry Manhattan skyline visible in the distance.
sometimes, they're tied to our most cherished memories.
He paused, a strange, nostalgic smile playing on his lips.
I remember when I first saw the Chrysler building. I was, 18, maybe 19. Fresh off the bus from upstate, starry-eyed and terrified. I had dreams of becoming an architect myself, dreams as big as those skyscrapers.
The students, usually restless, were now completely silent, captivated by the sudden shift in the lecture's trajectory.
I lived in a cramped little apartment in the East Village, with roommates who were perpetually arguing about art and rent. My world was a jumble of drawing boards, cheap coffee, and the gnawing feeling that I was completely out of my depth. And then I met Lilly.
He saw her again, vividly. Lilly with her unruly dark curls, her infectious laugh, and eyes that held the entire city's vibrancy. She was working in a small bookstore on Bleecker Street, a haven of dusty tomes and the comforting aroma of old paper. He'd gone in searching for a book on Frank Lloyd Wright and found, instead, something far more precious.
Lilly knew everything about New York. Every hidden alleyway, every obscure landmark, every street musician with a story to tell. She was a whirlwind of energy, dragging me to forgotten corners of the city, showing me its hidden beauty. She taught me to see the city not just as a collection of buildings, but as a living, breathing organism.
He remembered their first date. A walk across the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, the city lights twinkling like a million fallen stars. They'd ended up sitting on the steps of City Hall, sharing a greasy slice of pizza and talking until the early hours of the morning.
We spent hours wandering the streets, discovering hidden courtyards, admiring the details on old brownstones, marveling at the sheer audacity of the skyscrapers. Lilly loved the Chrysler building. She said it reminded her of a silver crown, a symbol of the city's enduring spirit. We used to meet at its base sometimes, just to stand there and admire it.
He remembered one particularly rainy afternoon. They'd been caught in a downpour and sought refuge in the lobby of the Chrysler building. The polished steel and marble gleamed under the soft lighting. They stood there, dripping and laughing, feeling like they were the only two people in the world. He'd pulled her close, and for the first time, he'd kissed her. The memory was so clear, so visceral, he could almost taste the rain on her lips.
It didn't last, of course.
Elias said, his voice tinged with a gentle sadness.
Lilly was restless. She had wanderlust. She left New York, chasing her dreams to the other side of the world. We lost touch. But even now, decades later, every time I see the Chrysler building, I think of her. I think of those early days, filled with hope and possibility and the intoxicating feeling of being young and in love in the greatest city in the world.
He looked back at the class, his eyes, for the first time, not just seeing them, but really connecting with them.
So, yes.
He said, a renewed passion lighting up his face.
Let's talk about the architecture. Let's talk about the materials, the techniques, the historical context. But let's also remember that these buildings are more than just bricks and mortar. They are the silent witnesses to our lives. They hold our memories, our hopes, our dreams. And in that sense, they are as alive as we are.
He clicked the remote, returning to the original slide.
Now, where were we? Ah yes, the post-war modernist movement.
But as he continued his lecture, he knew that a part of him was still standing at the base of the Chrysler building, in the rain, with Lilly, a young man dreaming of a future as bright and shining as the silver crown above. The architecture of New York, he realized, wasn't just a subject to be studied. It was the very foundation upon which his own story was built. And that story, like the city itself, was still being written. Subscribe to see more stories.